course, we have Sudhi again.
Hello.
Of course.
A big warm welcome. This is a fanboy moment,
you.
Jonty.
Thank
Let me
you,
just
Sudhi.
please take this in, enjoy this. Oh, this is wonderful.
Aram se.
You know, that's a little googly that you throw at me then, man. Didn't you? Because right before we were going to start the session, I went up very coyly to Jonty and I asked him, Jonty, so how's your Hindi? He's like,
Nahi.
ठीक है ना?
Not even Toda.
Thoda.
But firstly, from my side, everybody else welcome to Goa. Anybody else from Goa, or is it just me? I mean, I am way smarter than I look because I spent 5 months with my family. Please sit down. I spent 5 months with my family in Goa and 6 or 7 months in Cape Town. So I am smarter than I look. So please be warned about, I am warning you.
Fair enough.
Don't judge a book by its cover. Right? Okay.
Is that a point that you're making? No pun intended.
Very funny.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, Jonty. It's been something which I feel, and this is something which I feel that sport has forever been fascinating for all of us, forever, because it's unscripted. It's forever been unscripted and always will be unscripted. You need to be extremely creative as an individual, I feel, at some level or the other, to be so brilliant at what you do on the field. So I want you to probably start off with that, the start of your journey as this creative, exciting, happy boy who played, I don't know, how many, 95 different sports. Please start there. I'd really like to understand.
Okay, so firstly, before I get to the answer to that question, you said be creative, you're going to throw me curveballs, and let's face it, there's probably one thing that I can do is catch the curveball. Yeah. So I'm going to throw one straight back at you, and we'll get back to the introduction.
Wait, I need to warm up, please.
Yeah, you do. Because what was really fascinating, I mean, here is an ex-cricket player, coach, currently, well, yeah, I've done 15 out of 18 IPL, so I've worked on the management side. I'm also somebody with a Bachelor of Commerce degree. I worked for a bank in South Africa. And I think the key message always that I try and get across if I'm sitting on or standing on a stage usually is that there are real parallels between sport and business and communities as well. Because I'm a team, I'm always involved in a team sport, and the people dynamic, it's not just the skills. And what was really interesting at the start of your panel with Amit and Rhodes was you spoke about data and the All Blacks. I mean, nobody even reacted. You're in a cricket-loving, passionate country, and you're mentioning a rugby team about
yes, I did.
So wouldn't you like to hear what cricket players do?
I wanted everyone to actually get up and do the haka. I genuinely thought maybe that would have been inspirational. I mean, or at least you might have done it, but then...
No, nobody else. I don't think anybody else knows who the All Blacks are. New Zealand rugby team. So don't you want to know what cricket... Don't you want to know about innovation and analytics in cricket as well?
We were waiting for you to come on stage, Jonty.
Oh, okay. Because what really resonated with what Rhodes had spoken about innovation, and it's really fascinating. And from a perspective of, I've played in under captains, I've played against different teams and captains, and leadership styles are really important in an organization, especially regarding innovation. Because, I've seen leaders who kind of turn their back and say, that's not for us. I've seen teams and captains embrace the changes that are happening. But the problem with that is that you're then keeping up with the opposition because somebody else has done something innovative. And, the successful teams, the champion teams, are those who are not just embracing change, but are actually the ones initiating it. So innovation in sport is just as important as in business. And I think... one area that really highlighted innovation in cricket, we all think that T20 IPL has changed the way cricket's played. But anybody remember the World Cup in 1996?
Yeah.
Who won that? Sri Lanka. And why? I mean, not just because Arjuna's captaincy, he was a smart, streetwise captain, but why else did they...
It was also what we did at Eden Gardens, if you remember.
Nonsense. So suddenly, the Sri Lankans, the plan every other team had in 1996 was let's lay a foundation. So you batted number 1, 2, and 3 in the 50-over team, the same 1, 2, and 3 batted in the test team. So it was pretty much an approach of lay a foundation, the first 15 overs, let's score between 45 and 50 runs, but only lose 1 wicket. And in the middle, you'll have South Africa, we had Hansie Cronje and Jonty Rhodes, good athletes. We ran hard between the wickets, which enabled us to have wickets in hand at the end. And then for the last 10 overs, you could take as much risk as you wanted and hopefully get the score past 210, 220, which in 1996 was a big score. And the Sri Lankans kind of looked at the result they'd had in the 92 World Cup and just said, if we try and do the same, lay the foundation. They came 8th out of 9, and 4 years later, they were world champions. So their decision was, we're going to go as hard as possible in the first 15 overs. We want between 75 and 85 runs. So already, and if they lose 2 or 3 wickets doing that, that's fine, because there's a middle period that every team consolidates and takes it to the death overs, the last 10 overs. And they had Ranatunga and Aravinda who could literally manipulate the ball without taking any risk at all. So Sri Lanka were already 30 runs ahead of the opposition. And the rest of us were searching, because Sanath and Kalu, just their instruction was, if you see the ball, hit it. Doesn't matter if you're aiming there and it goes there, no problem. But just see the ball, hit it as hard as you can. And the rest of us...
You wouldn't have done that if you were on the field, but yeah. Anyway.
No, but I was at backward point. The ball kept flying over my head, So it wasn't a case of, hold on, here's your best fielder, but he's
Don't
not,
hit in Jonty's direction, but the rest is
hit
fine.
it somewhere else. But the interesting thing was that the rest of us, we used Pat Simcox, the tall off-spin bowler who could hit a long ball. Javigal Srinath was used by India. And the Sri Lankans, we were all embracing the change. So I think that the key message was they initiated that change. And Hansie Cronje became the captain in 96. And the 99 World Cup, he had spoken to the team and he said, anybody who has a fresh idea of doing things differently, let's bring it to practice, let's try it out. And in the 99 World Cup, Bob Wilmer was the coach, and he had said to Hansie, I watch American football, and the coaches all have headphones and microphones, and they're talking to people, hired, so they can see the bigger picture. Because often when you're a leader or the captain, you're kind of at the coalface. It's difficult to see the bigger picture. So Bob said to Hansie, listen, man, I've ordered these communication devices, one-way communication device. It goes in your ear. It looks like a small hearing aid, no clip. And I've been through the cricket law books, which I think were written in 1820. So no mention of communication devices. So, we're not breaking the rules. But Hansie felt a little bit not sure, so he put his in and he put a plaster over it. And Alan Donald was a gadget freak. It came in a set of 2s. Now, this wasn't for Bob Wilmer to give Hansie instruction, because Hansie was a great leader, a great captain, and it was just for Bob to say, I'm sitting here in the dressing room viewing area, I can see the whole field, and if I've got any ideas that I can pass to you, I'll communicate that. So Alan Donald wanted the other one, and he put it in his ear, but now he's got to bowl the first over, and it probably was a good thing, because it meant we didn't get banned or fined. So as he came to bowl the first delivery, he walked to the umpire, gave his cap, he gave his 2 jerseys. We were playing in London, so in the UK. So summer in the UK, everybody's still wearing 2 jumpers and coats. And he dug in his ear, and he pulled out this brown lump. It was literally like a brown, round thing. And the umpire went, whoa, don't you, what is that? It's like dirt. And Hansie had now come over, and he had the plaster over his ear, and he took out his earpiece, his communication device, and said, well, actually, it's a communication device. So the 2 umpires got on their communication device, walkie-talkies with Mr. Clive Lloyd, who was the match referee, and said, Mr. Lloyd, the South Africans have a communication device on the field. Can we continue? And Clive Lloyd went through the same law books, couldn't find anything about communication devices, and just his sort of decision was, hey, Hansie, it's not breaking the law, but nobody else has it, so I'm going to ask you to please not use them. And Hansie went, well, that's the whole point. There's nobody else has got it. We are being innovative, so why now restrict us? Or it's not against the law. And the interesting fact there was that the Sri Lankans, the innovation that they had, the way that they batted, they didn't have different bats. Same wooden bats, not made out of aluminium. I was diving around the field, seen as an innovative fielder. I didn't have rockets in my shoes.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
You could have fooled us.
yeah. I had rubber in my elbows and in my knees because that definitely required to bounce. And then I was just, doing things slightly differently to anybody else. And the key message that I have, and it's amazing to be able to listen to business leaders and go, hey, I've had the same situation in a team environment, in a cricket team environment, is that too often we think that innovation is R&D's department. Yes, it can be about systems and tech, sure, like Hansi with his device. But it also can be about a different perspective. And that was the Sri Lankans, their attitude towards those first 15 overs. And my fielding, I was loving my fielding. I had a different perspective, and that was it, about fielding. So the key message and what Rhodes spoke about, reinforced in a cricketing environment, it's everybody's job. Innovation we don't just wait for R&D to tell us, okay, implement this new system, new tech. If you encourage an environment where it's everybody's job to be innovative, because we all have unique perspectives on life, and if we don't tap into that, we are just going to be embracing change rather in a position where we can initiate change. Okay, sorry, back to your question. Thank you.
Nice. You are going to talk about creativity, or should I come back to that later?
Oh, no, we can go back.
No, but before,
Yeah.
but before that, I just wanna tell you that I think everyone is going to go ahead and applaud the fact that whatever you just talked about, translated on the field a little while back, you guys won the ultimate test, didn't you?
The World Test Championship, yeah. No, but
So congratulations on that, Jonty. A big one.
okay, but now that you're talking about ICC events, usually South Africans choke.
Yes. I was going to come to that.
I'm just preparing myself to not to choke anymore that we've won an ICC event. But thank you.
Congratulations. And yeah, that is actually the transformation that this summit has been talking about for the longest time. A lot of these glorious leaders have spoken about it. But I think it just takes a lot of hard work and a lot of interesting aspects behind the scenes, Jonty, for that to kind of go ahead and play out on a world stage, because South Africa has been riddled with that for decades. Brilliant team, wonderful talent, everything, but right towards the end, I don't know, what was going on there? Was it something that you guys were eating? Was it something that... What was going on?
I mean, it is fascinating because I was involved with 4 World Cups, and in all 4 World Cups, we were, if you look back on them, we exited from crucial stages. And 92, the rain came down for 10 minutes, so you're totally out of our control. 96, we won 5 out of 5, and then they had sort of Super 8s the next round, or knockout stage. And Brian Lara, remember that guy?
Yeah,
he
no,
could
I
play
don't know.
a bit.
Who are you talking about?
So he scored 100 against us, so these things happen. 99, South Africa versus Australia. We didn't lose a game, we tied it. And then 2003 against Sri Lanka. We tied the last game that we needed to win that, and there was no super over. So it's been interesting, because if you had to ask me in my career, did you guys ever feel like you had emotional block? And it was never the case. And the fascinating thing is that, I know we had to talk about resilience, but and I think championship teams or champion teams are not champions when they raise the trophy. They champion teams over a long period of time. It's kind of what you do away from the lights and the official ceremony to hand over the trophy. And I think South Africa have always maintained that. It's been frustrating. There certainly have been a lot of setbacks and heartbreak, but nobody's ever given up, going, okay, well, it's just not meant to be, so what's the point?
I think that's the key, isn't it?
100%, and it is. I mean, resilience is not about teams that are championship teams, that they're not immune to obstacles and resistance. They just find a way, and sometimes that way it's a long journey and a long path. So from a perspective of, yes, winning trophies and standing on the stage is awesome, but you need to be a championship team the whole way before you get to that, lifting of the trophy. So it doesn't mean that if you're not being number one, is that you're not a championship team, because you impact way more. If you're a championship team, you impact the greater community as opposed to just standing there on the stage with the trophy. I mean, we'd like to win trophies, don't get me wrong, we really do, but you can still have a massive impact on more, than the 11 or 12 players in the team. You need to be impacting the greater community.
Fair enough. All right, so this is the one for you guys. I genuinely want to know from everyone. For me, there are people who bat, there are people who bowl, and then there are people who fly. And they change it. And they change everything. For me, that moment, and I genuinely just fell out of my chair. That was 1992. How many people remember that? To me, time stopped. And he made that time stop. And I want a big round of applause. And that kind of magic does not happen overnight. It's just truly brilliant. It's just truly revolutionary. He's the gentleman who changed the idea of fielding. He's the gentleman who made sure that even Navjot Singh Sidhu was known as Jonty Sidhu. That, to me, requires a round of applause. So, Jonty, I genuinely want to understand the sheer grit, the sense of the Zen-like state that you had found yourself in that moment. But what happened prior to that? And please feel creative enough to bring in and answer my creative question finally.
We will go back to the first question. From a creativity point of view, my parents are both teachers, so it was always a balance between doing schoolwork but being active and involved in sports. And I had a mild form of epilepsy as a youngster. So
really sorry to hear that. Yeah. Though.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, epilepsy is not a disease. It's a condition. It's a neurological condition. And because it's affecting your brain, it affects all of us differently, people with epilepsy. So mine was a really mild form, and it basically meant I got concussion very easily. So as a kid, I had to wear a helmet. I know there are rules in schools in South Africa, and I'm sure the same applies in India, in a formal cricketing environment. If you're playing hardball cricket at any age, you have to wear a helmet. And there were hardly any helmets in South Africa in my youth. So the interesting thing was that because I couldn't play rugby, which was a sport that my father had been good at, my younger brother was a good cricket player and a rugby player. And as a youngster, my parents didn't say, your head is the problem, so don't do this and don't do that. They really were amazing and encouraging. And again, as teachers, they understood that if kids are perceived to be different, their peers can be quite nasty. Yep. So my parents encouraged me to do everything within reason. And the one thing that I wasn't allowed to do was play rugby, because it's a very physical contact sport, and concussion is a big part of it. So, I couldn't follow in my father's footsteps. But at the school that I was at, you had to play winter sports. Rugby was one of them. Hockey and football were the other. And I was also a tennis player, and my father was an athlete and a rugby player. So I had the genetics around it. But
really?
No. And it was a case of, because I never ever had a fielding coach, ever. Never had a fielding coach. So even throughout my playing days, you kind of worked with your teammates, and we had one coach with the team. That was it, a head coach, and nobody else to help out. And it's quite strange, because I'm one of 5 assistant coaches in an IPL environment where you got a bowling coach, a batting coach, a fielding coach, a head coach, assistant coach, and in that environment where, because I was now a hockey player, a football player, tennis player, all the skills that I picked up in those sports, I then adapted onto cricket.
Yeah, I know you're a very humble human being. I'm so sorry I'm cutting you through, but you want to please also tell them that you were almost an Olympian as far as hockey is concerned, and you were picked for the team. No. And you want to maybe just...
No, that's another story. I was fortunate enough to play hockey at state level, cricket at state level, in 1992, prior to the World Cup. And in fact, India invited South Africa back in September, October of 1991. We came for 3 one-day internationals. And cricket, there had been no international sport in South Africa at all for 27 or 28 years. Sporting and economic sanctions were imposed to try and, rightly so, change the minority white regime. But that's, as a hockey player and as a kid, those are the 2 sports that I followed, was cricket and hockey. And at that stage, when I was at university studying for my degree, playing state hockey and state cricket, and then we got back into world cricket my final year at university. So trying to balance all of that was where the creativity was required. But I had all these attributes from all the other sports, and often you kind of, well, if you're an all-rounder, my tennis player when I was 13 told me to give up all sports and just play tennis, because he just said to me, his criticism of me playing other sports is that you'll be a jack of all trades, which is basically, you'll be good at everything but not excellent in anything. You'll be good at everything but not, high quality in a particular sport. And I gave up tennis, needless to say. So if that was the condition, only played tennis, okay, that was it. That's one sort of decision that's been made up for me. How do I squeeze all the sports into the time that was available?
Tennis players would have been, breathing a sigh of relief and stuff like that.
Well, I don't know. There was
Jonty hovering over us now.
No, there was a generation of Agassiz, Pete Sampras.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been watching tennis. But anyway, so all these sports combined to make me, because if you think of a hockey player, you run with the stick or the ball on the end of the stick. So in the covers, that was how I would run very quickly in a bent over position. As a football player, I was actually the goal scorer and a hockey player. So all the skills the things that the goalkeeper did, I then implemented as a backward point fielder, because I didn't want the ball to go past me. So
Very interesting.
I saw myself then as a goalkeeper. So all the skills that the goalkeepers displayed against me, I then implemented when Sachin was trying to hit the ball past. And then from a point of view where, what did I do on that day?
Yeah.
The great thing about fielding and the other sports that I played is that it gave me good awareness, peripheral vision. Because when you play cricket, it's a straight line game. So the bowler comes at you and the ball's coming from there. When you bat and bowl, it's a linear game. But as a fielder, it requires lateral movement. So all the sports the football and the hockey, it gave me a good spatial awareness. And what I remember that day, we were playing Pakistan. It was towards the end of the World Cup. We had to win 2 out of the last 3 games to qualify for the semi-final. Because all they had was 9 teams. We were the 9th team. And, we were brand new on the international scene. Nobody had seen us before and played against, which was probably an advantage in a way, because there was no data on us.
Correct.
We were very much a surprise factor. But my strength as a fielder had generally been about getting close, like a goalkeeper, cut the angle down. But because we needed a wicket desperately, Imran was batting with Inzamam at that stage. And the rain had come down.
He was like a rabbit between the wickets in any case, wasn't he?
Inzi was. We didn't realize how bad he was going to turn out between the wickets. It was the irony of it is that he was 19, I think, at the stage. But every other team talk after that about how do you we didn't have much data in those days, but there was always a bowling plan to every batter, and the bowling plan to Inzi was, hey Jonty, don't run him out the first time because he's going to give us another opportunity. So run the other guy out. That literally became the team talk, because he was good for 2 run-outs at least in the game. The other guy and then Inzi. But in that case, Imran Khan obviously knew how bad Inzi was, because what I remember about the situation, firstly, we needed a breakthrough, because they were scoring at 9 runs and over. They were hunting down, they were taking down the target. So there had been a rainstorm, the game was reduced, but it meant the ball was wet in the outfield and the bowlers were struggling to land the ball in the right direction. So instead of being close, where I used to be at backward point next to gully to cut the angle down like a goalkeeper, I was now back trying to prevent the boundaries. I was on the circle, on the line. And when Inzi, the ball actually hit his pad and it kind of looped to point, my accuracy, because as a fielder then in 92, I had just made the South African side and I'd been playing state cricket for 3 years, but without a coach, without equipment, my accuracy at throwing down the stumps wasn't great. It really wasn't great. So my strength was my flexibility, my agility, my adaptability, change direction, the ability to dive and catch a ball, but it wasn't throwing down the stump. So as soon as I saw the ball in that area and Inzi halfway, I wanted to throw at the bowler's end, because that gives you 3 stumps to aim at. So at backward point, you've either got 1 stump or you've got 3 at the non-striker's end. And the image that I had was Imran Khan standing like this with his hand up. So if you ever see a photo of me kind of flying through the air, there's Inzamam trying to reach his ground, but Imran is standing there with his hand up. So I know he's not coming, so I can't throw at the 3 stumps. I can only throw at the 1 stump.
You saw all of this in that split second?
Split second. That's... Hopefully it comes out a bit later. Yeah, so... And I'd never practiced it before. And again, the other sports that I played gave me that awareness. And I'd never done that at practice, and I never did it again. So instinctively, I was going to run to the stumps to knock over the stumps with ball in hand, because that was 100% guaranteed that Inzi would, that I would hit the stumps. Then he started coming back faster than I had anticipated. And I just felt, well, if I throw the ball now, I'm going to look really stupid if I miss, because I'm now on the move, and and I just thought the fastest way to cover those last 2 meters was launch myself sort of full stretch and get there as fast as possible. So, I mean, the irony is that Inzi was literally an inch short of the line, and there was no third umpire. Steve Bucknor was at square leg, and he was well within his right to say not out. Because in those days, the reason why my accuracy also wasn't so good is that as soon as you got the ball, you had to throw, because the batter had to be at least a meter out before the umpire gave the fielder the benefit of the doubt. So without the referral, it's so difficult to see the stumps, see the line, a difficult job for the umpires. So I really could have looked very silly, because Steve Bucknor could have said not out, and everyone would have gone, why didn't you just throw the ball? But the interesting thing is that, and again, it settled something early on in my career, was that back your strengths. Play to your strengths. I was a hockey player, so, when people kept saying, well, you got to play with a straight bat, yes. But Bob Wilmer was the first coach who came and said, hey, Jonty, why don't you start, because I was criticized for playing the sweep. He just said, I love the way you sweep. What about the reverse sweep? You're a hockey player, you're short, you load to the ground. So play to your strengths is such an important thing. And in a team environment where you have people with such unique skills, and that's the beauty of a team. You don't have 11 clones. You've got people with unique capabilities. And it's, as a leader, it's about understanding what those unique capabilities and giving people an opportunity to grow in that area of strength. Make sense? Yeah, all in a split second. Like in a second. That's what I was thinking.
Just a second, and you saw the world just, time stopped, everything stopped, and it was just magic created. You changed everything. You changed the way people saw fielding, people saw everything in terms of cricket. You just brought this sense of energy and agility to all of that. But the question is, in terms of that moment having taken place, right? The world of cricket suddenly saw this superstar being born. What was the kind of pressure, Jonty, from there on in? Like you said, you never really attempted to do something like that again. All of that did not really come to your mind to kind of follow it up with this sense of bravado, and that, you know what, I did this then, and let me show you, and all of that. There was no upstaging as far as things are concerned. You went about life in a very happy, beautiful, structured way.
I mean, the fascinating thing is that I never felt under pressure fielding, ever fielding. And never a case of, okay, so what is the next thing that I have? What is the next level that I have to go to? Because, I mean, I believe that I was giving everything every single game. So it wasn't a case of, okay, now I've done a full-length dive, so maybe next time it's got to be a dive with a tuck and roll that ends, like has a better finish.
Yeah.
Where my toes together, is there something else I can work on? But how else do I entertain the people?
Steve Bucknor probably doing 10.
Yeah. He gave me 1. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. 1 out of 10 I didn't mind, but that was the most important one.
True.
And the amazing thing is that because my real job in the team was to score runs. I mean, how many chances do you have as a batter? How many mistakes can you make?
True.
1.
True.
And now as a fielder, if I missed the ball or dropped the ball, the very next ball I could make it up. Which having that sort of freedom to fail allows you to play to the best of your ability, because I never, if I did miss a ball, and I did, I mean, the very last ball that I was on the field playing for South Africa, I actually dropped it. Yeah. I mean, you can see.
That's the one, yeah.
So my finger goes sideways. I don't know if anyone can see that.
That ended the career, didn't it? Yeah.
So I'm supposedly the world's best fielder, and I dropped the catch. And that's the last time I was on the field for South Africa. So yes, mistakes happen in the field, but generally, if you don't break a finger, the next ball you can rectify, not the mistake, you can redeem yourself, and you have an opportunity to change the game the next ball. So from that perspective, I never felt under pressure, like, what is the next level?
Did it translate into your batting? Because in terms of the fact that if you're dropping something on the field, fair enough, all of that. But at the back of your mind, did that have anything to do with the time when you walked out to bat? That, okay, wait a minute, I did not hit that standard today on the field, so maybe I'll redeem myself with the bat. Did that happen?
It happened often. You know, I was a very, I don't know if you noticed, somebody with lots of energy. You noticed that? I had a lot of energy.
Really?
Yeah. So the issue is that, you know, fear.
What was in those bottles of water? I just wanted to understand.
Yeah. We're a South African team. We were a hardcore team. But the interesting thing is that, I mean, adrenaline is fear or energy. Because we all, no matter how many games you play, you still walk out on the field and you are pumped with adrenaline. And if you can control that, it becomes energy. If you can't control it, it becomes fear. And that pretty much inhibits you. It makes you way tenser in the field. So yes, you know, there's different, if you're playing in a pool game in a World Cup and a final of a World Cup, which I never got to play, in a semi-final and knockout, the energy is way more intense. And there is a danger. And as a young state cricket player, my debut playing first-class cricket was, I was down to be 12th man. I was 19 years old. I was studying at university. I was the only player from Pietermaritzburg. Now, Pietermaritzburg is famous in South Africa not because I was from Pietermaritzburg, was because Gandhiji was kicked off the train in South Africa in Pietermaritzburg because he was in the whites-only carriage. And he started literally his movement from Pietermaritzburg, being kicked off the train. So, you know, there was a situation where it's throughout my career. What is the question again? I've got lost with Gandhi.
Question was about the pressure that kind of somewhere did it filter
through.
through.
So my first game, my debut, I was down to be 12th man from Pietermaritzburg, the only player from Pietermaritzburg. So I came to the practice the night before, knowing I'd be 12th man. I got dropped off at the hotel, which was 1.5 kilometers away from the ground. And then everybody arrived at the ground the next day without me, because I didn't have a car. I was not a sponsored player. I was just this young kid who was going to be 12th man. And I walked with my cricket bag. I walked to the stadium because I wasn't, no mobile phones. Nobody's coming. Okay, let me sort the problem out. And on that morning, literally before the coin was tossed, there were 12 of us with me, 12th man. The cricket stadium was called, the office, and one of our players, his wife was having a baby right then and there.
Wow.
So he left. So now we were down to 11. 11 players only. And I had to play because there was no time to call anybody else. And we were playing one of the strongest teams, and we were quite a weak side. And on my debut, first class, I scored 100.
Wow.
And I think because there was no pressure. No, I mean, this is part of my story. There was no pressure for me to perform because I was supposed to be the 12th man. And I wasn't there for my batting. So I suddenly walked out to the crease, and nobody was expecting anything, myself included. The opposition didn't know who I was. No one had ever seen me, and I managed to score 100. So, that was the amazing thing. And the problem was that after that, because we were not a great first-class team, and here's this fresh youngster who's scored 100 on debut, and he's the future of the province or the state, then there was pressure.
Yes.
And I used to literally throw up in the dressing room. So waiting to bat, I could never sit still in my chair. I was always up and down, and unfortunately we weren't great. So generally we were 80 for 4 and I'd have to go and bat. Yeah. So I didn't have to wait 3 days like poor Tristan Stubbs or South Africa with Bavuma and Markram batting all day, or Lakshman and Dravid batting for 2 days. So the next guy batting, it's really tough. But I generally would have to go and almost throw up just from nerves. So that expectation was something that weighed heavily on me as a young cricket player. So, faith and spirituality certainly gave me a way out. But when at the start of my career, in my batting compared to my fielding I loved, enjoyed. Mistakes, successes, it was never a case of what if I do something wrong? Because I knew I could redeem that and still make a difference the next ball.
And you did again and again and again. But that's actually something which I wanted to talk to you about immediately in terms of the spiritual growth, the sense of probably vibrating at a higher energy realm. A lot of us tend to kind of go ahead and find that. Maybe we don't know how to define it. But I believe it's a very important aspect in one's toolkit, probably the most important one, to ensure that we can go ahead and find a certain sense of a a sense of brilliance, whatever you might be doing in your own field. What was that moment like for you in terms of when did you start to say that, all right, maybe this is a calling, this is something which I need to go ahead and sense and understand and vibrate at?
I mean, this is an interesting part of my journey because I have a previous marriage to the one I'm currently in, and children from both marriages. And my wife Melanie is a yoga teacher. She's an architect. She also practices Vedanta philosophy. And my first wife, when we met at university, was my first girlfriend. My second, I just grew up a very shy young man in a small village outside of a small town, Pietermaritzburg. And my ex-wife was very religious, and that was real discipline. My father was a school principal, and discipline was something that I was very accustomed to. Because he, as a school principal, he was allowed to, we had corporal punishment in the schools. I was an all-boys school, 600 youngsters between 8 and 13. Then an all-boys high school, 1,000 boys between 13 and 18. So discipline with the stick was something that was instrumental in my youth. So as a young cricket player in my first marriage with a religious person, that was very much discipline. And, you know, and discipline is something that gets you a long way on a sports field. Because as I said, it's not just about, you know, what you do on the day. It's how you do things in the lead up to the match. And I was always fortunate because the one piece of advice my father gave me was just, hey, Jonty, you know, your coaches will tell you, because he is the school principal, he only coached the 8-year-old kids. So there was never any, you know, worry of nepotism and your son's playing in the A team because you're the school principal. So he would coach the 8-year-old kids. And he sort of brought me down and watched the one day at practice. And I was now 12, 13 and playing my first state representation at under 13 state level. And he said, let me just give you some good advice. You know, because us sons don't always listen to our fathers. He said, this is now my advice to you as a coach. Because throughout your years as a player, you'll have lots of coaches talking about practice makes perfect. Hard work is required. And yes, there is no shortcut. It is required. I was just fortunate that I loved my fielding, so it never felt like hard work. But he said, nay, that practice makes perfect is only half the story. It's perfect practice that makes perfect.
Nice.
And the essence of that was just practice like it's a match situation.
Nice.
And the fascinating thing is that, you know, throughout my career, that was pretty much how I practiced, because it was never spend long hours. It was spend the right time, you know, doing the right thing. And that sort of has now filtered into my fielding coach, because we play the IPL in the hottest time of the year in India. And the players work really hard. And it's 45 degrees or it's 38 in Mumbai and Chennai with 90% humidity. It's sapping and draining energy-wise. And if I'm asking the players to, because they're working on their batting and their bowling skills, and if I'm asking the players to come spend another 40 minutes with me, there's no ways they're going to survive that, because it's match-like intensity. And I was always of the understanding that, you know, it's not just, I would rather simulate high match intensity with 5 to 7 minutes of perfect practice than expecting the players to, because cricket's a game of habit. So if you're sharp and fresh for the first 6 minutes, and then you're tired and your brain tells you to slow down, we start getting lazy and instead of moving like we should. And that's the habit that we bring into the game. You know,
And
so
that's the same with leadership in so many ways. Plus also, just wanted to add to what you said, something which is beautiful. Religion, do you believe, is also straddled with fear, Jonty.
Yeah, big time. So
Spirituality is a liberation.
100%. So understanding and seeing Melanie, and there was a difference between religion and spirituality.
Yeah.
Was that, you know, and in any faith, there is that definition. I mean, there is a line where it's following the rules or following your heart. And we are going to make mistakes for sure. And Melanie, as my wife had, and as a yoga teacher, had never been to India before we met. And that was 2013. And I just said to her, you've got to come to India because this is where I spent half my life. And she said, yes, please. No, we had a choice of having our children in Cape Town or in India. She said, no choice, it's India. And for her, having sort of me seeing that and just a grounded individual has really awakened my eyes. And as a cricket coach, and it's important because as a player, you know, you only focused on your performance because that's how you're judged. as a cricket coach, you're trying to get the best out of this, this combination of players from different cultures and different ways and upbringings to get them to play as one without any fear of failure. And a lot of that is the faith that I've seen, or the spirituality that I have seen in my wife, and the influence that she's had on us as a family, which I'm grateful for, because as a cricket player, yes, it was the discipline that definitely got me to where I was. My father's advice on perfect practice: if you've only got 5 minutes, do it. You don't skip it today because you've only got 5 minutes, because that's pretty much how you should be practicing. So a real difference in that, religion versus spirituality. And I've been doing yoga for 10 years and I still can't touch my toes. So it's not about, improve your flexibility. But for Melanie as a yoga teacher, her yoga is about meditation.
I just have to crack one very bad joke in that one, which is, you can't touch your toes? To kya hua?
Okay. Translate.
I'm sorry, I had to do it. To kya hua, which means, it was a pun. So, to in Hindi means so.
So what?
So what?
Okay, exactly. Thank you.
Kya hua.
Yeah. I understood the body language.
Sense of that. India, why? I mean, we're gonna get to your wonderful daughter later, which is obviously a celebration of India. But why India, Jonty? Correct me if I'm wrong, there was this moment where the entire country forgot that we're Indians, and here was somebody who changed the way we thought, understood the game of cricket, and that was you. And this was 1993, if I'm not mistaken. Was that a moment which kind of just ignited and spurred things on? The moment was Prebon Stadium, and that story is genuinely beautiful. And I think, did that start to make the shift in terms of the way people just embraced you?
Well, it's interesting because as a cricket player from South Africa in the 90s, we used to hate, and literally hate, coming to India because the conditions batting-wise were so different. The playing conditions were so different to what we were accustomed to in South Africa. So it was a massive turnaround because we used to face Pakistan, similar conditions we could handle. Pace bowling, bounce, no problem. But coming to India or Sri Lanka was very tough for us because the wickets were slower and they would turn.
Sure.
And something that we had never really faced in South Africa. So we were way more comfortable. So we were not great out of our comfort zones. And it was interesting because, every net bowler that you faced, it was generally a 15-year-old kid. And they would all spin the ball past the bat and make us feel stupid and look stupid. And, when you get hit by a fast bowler, you get a bruise to your body. But when you get bowled out by a spin bowler, bruise to your ego. That's the worst injury as a cricket player, because we do have egos. I think all of us have egos, and often it's the ego that drives us. But traveling to India was always something that we weren't happy about. And in 1993, think back to India, the growth in India in Tier 1, Tier 2, because yes, in the metros there was infrastructure, but a lot of the games that we played, especially the one-day games, were in outside those, Rajkot and Kanpur.
Yes.
And in the early 90s,
the real dust bowls.
In Gujarat, it was really tough places for us to not just play, but to live. The foods, the hotels, the infrastructure wasn't very comfortable like it is today. But playing in that Prebon Stadium where I took 5 catches in a game and then was then told afterwards that it's a world record. What does it feel like?
Record,
I went, what?
Yes.
Does fielding have a world record?
Yes, it does.
I didn't even know that it existed.
You created those, but
and it's crazy. It was equaled, I think, last week. Harry Brooks from England took 5. It's been 30-odd years since that opportunity.
Correct.
But the amazing thing is we were playing against the West Indies, so that helped. And they had obviously, the crowd had obviously seen me at the World Cup in 1992. But by the 3rd catch, there was just this incessant chant of Jonty, not Sachin. It was just Jonty, Jonty, Jonty.
It was like
it didn't stop because it just seemed like every ball in the game kind of came to me, it was important because I would put myself where the majority of the deliveries would go because I understood the bowling plan of each bowler, and that's where I put myself. So I tended to be in the game the majority of the time. So having that crowd, because you expect that sort of support in your home country, but to get it in India, was incredible. But it didn't really change my perspective of touring India in 1996. It was still as tough. Because conditions-wise, we didn't spend a lot of time in the subcontinent. But what has been amazing as a cricket coach, because when you come as a player, you land at the hotel or you land at the airport, you get a team bus with security front and back. You go to the hotel, you're separated from anybody else. You then go to the stadium, you play, you're back to the hotel on a team bus. The crowd can't get to you. You then go to the airport, you fly over India at 30,000 feet.
Right.
So as a coach, I learned to ride a motorbike in Mumbai, a Royal Enfield, like the old classic 500 classic, which is a heavy bike.
Yeah.
And we're trying to navigate and there was no 2G, 3G in 2009, 2010. So no maps to tell you where to go. So I was trying to navigate traffic head on from all directions. ABD is Mr. 360, and I wish I had been at least 180, or I had 180 vision, maybe 270, because traffic in India just comes from all over. But I had the opportunity on the bike.
Have you been to Bangalore?
Yeah.
Just checking.
No, for sure.
okay.
I've just come from Bangalore, or Delhi, Bangalore, and it's now is probably the worst traffic in India. Although Goa, Gonda Beach, when you're on a scooter and there's buffalo, and because you can kind of at least predict what people are going to do, whereas when it's animals in Goa, you're at a slight disadvantage. But the amazing thing is that I now on a motorbike got to parts of India that none of my teammates ever got to. And as a cricket player, I understand you need a break from the pressures, and whereas as a cricket coach, I never had the same pressures. And the reason why there is this connect with India is that growing up in apartheid era South Africa, and I'm not sure if it was Amit or Rhodes, I think Rhodes also mentioned it about continually upskilling yourself. And it's not just the people in your organization, it's us as leaders and as management. We continuously need to upskill ourselves. And the amazing thing about India is that in South Africa, in apartheid, those 600 kids at school were all white. The 1,000 boys at school were all white. So my community looked the same, thought the same, spoke the same.
Sure.
There was no outside influence or different perspective at all. And the fascinating thing about India, and you asked me, do I speak Hindi? Is that, and I said, nay, because the majority of places in India, it's the second language anyway. So if I'm in Chennai, they're going to speak Tamil. If I'm here in Goa, it's not going to be Hindi.
True.
But the amazing thing is that because of this isolation in apartheid era South Africa, I've really been drawn to the fact that I've realized that the more I learn about other people, the more I learn about myself. So I'm still on this path of discovery. I'm never the finished product, and I don't think any of us ever are. And India is an incredible place to learn about different people.
Cultures.
Because, in South Africa, sure, we have 11 different languages. In India, there'll be one language, mother tongue, but the dialects are so different in different parts of the community in the same state. So I have that opportunity to keep growing, which is now living in Goa is even more interesting because, I'm on the ground every single day. And we take the kids to school in a scooter or in the Mahindra. And we drive and we walk and we're on the ground in India as a family. And, it's not a lesson that is a part of this conversation, but adaptability and agility in business is essential. Being able to change direction. And I've learned so much from my children because we lived in Sweden for 3 years. We then came back. We've now lived in Goa for 2 winters in Goa. And seeing my kids adapt is such a big lesson. We think we're the ones that need to impact our children. But if we sit still enough and are quiet and give them the opportunity, they can teach us a great deal. And I've learned real adaptability, which is agility in a way, from my kids in how they've adapted in the different countries that we've taken them to.
I have to ask you this question, yes. I genuinely have to ask you this question, and I think that is one question which everyone from the crowd, also probably all the leaders, everyone wants me to ask. Have you heard of Sachin Tendulkar?
That 10 guy. He's got 10 on his back, yeah. I remember the number.
Yeah.
Why did he make his number 10? Dulka. Okay, yeah, I get that.
Yeah. You've seen him up close and personal. You just talked about adaptability. A wonderful little fact, which I'm sure you already know about him. He never got out in the same way twice. He was just so brilliant. He's somebody who could narrate you all the times that he got out, the way he got out, etc., etc., etc. You've seen him up close and personal. You've played so many games with him. What was that one sense that you felt? Talent, yes, through the roof. But what was that magical combination, Jonty, that made sure that this gentleman did not talk about leadership? He was the epitome and definition of it.
Yeah, I think there's different styles of leadership. You can obviously, sort of follow me kind of leadership style. And there's other styles of leadership which are kind of follow me, I'm right behind you. And then you lead by example in your area. And I spoke about perfect practice. And the fascinating thing about Sachin, even at the end of his international, it wasn't the end of his international career, but 2009, the IPL was 2008, the first year, 2009. So up until then, I'd played against Sachin.
Sure.
And we kind of had one goal when we played India, especially in South Africa. In India, a different story. But in South Africa, we had Sachin's wicket. That was our only focus because the rest of the team in the 90s
Would rally around him.
would struggle without him because he had the technique and the adaptability with the talent and just being able to adapt to the conditions, that if he was the one guy that could kind of stick it out and obviously inspire the rest of the team. But once he was out, we felt that we could go through India. But this is now 2010, so the first season that I'm working at the IPL in India. And there's a guy, Dale Steyn, playing for, at that stage, Bangalore. He's a raw fast bowler, and Sachin had obviously played against him, India versus South Africa. And I spoke about the perfect practice. And it wasn't just me as a fielder, because there was one cricketer who, as glorious as his career had been, because he was playing Dale Steyn at Wankhede, and in India you have black soil pitches or you have red soil. And the red soil in Wankhede means that there's more bounce. So Sachin, because I'm a tennis player, and he's a damn good tennis player too, and TT plays great table tennis, used to clean all of us up. So frustrating that this guy can be so good at everything. But his preparation, he batted in the nets, and then he called me over, and I went, okay, I'm not going to give Sachin advice, and maybe it's about Dale Steyn. And he just said, Jonty, I know what Dale Steyn is going to do to me tomorrow. In the power play, he's going to bowl the ball at my nose, because he needs to knock me over. Because if he's swinging it, I have the technique. And he's only going to get me out if he bowls a short ball.
My toes.
And my glove, I glove the ball to sort of backward point or gully. So he said, please. Now, obviously can't ask any of the bowlers to bowl bounces because my fingers are damaged as it is. I mean, I have one sore finger. All 10 of them are in different. He's obviously been targeted by every bowling attack that he's ever faced. And he said, please just come, because I'm a tennis player. He said, please come serve the ball to me in the nets. I said, what? Like, you want a beamer? No, bounce the ball, because that's a Wankhede bounce, and that's what Dale Steyn is going to do. So for half an hour, I just bowled the ball, and he only practiced, not playing any shots, just dropping his hands so he wouldn't glove the ball off his nose, because that's what players do. Instinctively, you react and get your hands up. And he felt that he couldn't practice that for half an hour with a cricket ball because he's going to get hit. But if the tennis ball hits him, that's fine. And that's how focused he was on every single game, practicing perfectly. And he has a player who he didn't need to change anything, or his career was already incredible. But every single game that he played, that was what he did. He understood the opposition, and he set out his practice accordingly.
Brilliant.
Perfect practice.
Perfect practice it is.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, Jonty, that you celebrate India by naming your daughter that. And genuinely, that is a beautiful way to embrace the culture and everything that India is. I have to ask you, what's her reaction when she sees your highlight reel in life? I'd really like to know. What was it like?
Well, firstly, we actually don't have a television at home. So she keeps asking, Dad, why are you famous? And it's interesting because, I mean, the two children that we have that were both born in Mumbai, India's now 10 and Nathan's 8. And India is the one, she plays cricket. Nathan, he doesn't play cricket. He's just started playing cricket recently. So, I'm not the kind of dad that's going play. Because, again, because my parents were teachers, we also didn't have television. We were just told to go outside and play, be creative. whatever ball sports you want to play, just don't sit. There's no TV to watch. Reading was a big part of our existence. So our kids now, I mean, it's fascinating because we sit in Agonda Beach for 5 months. The kids go to school literally in the jungle. So, you know, schooling in India, generally in all the metros, it's vertical. There's not much outdoor space. Our kids don't wear a uniform. It's an IEB, so it's an international-based curriculum. So the transition back into Cape Town is not too difficult. But they don't wear shoes. They don't wear a uniform. I mean, Nathan, and the soil in Goa, I don't know if you've noticed it yet, it's like that red soil. Yeah. So Nathan, from under his feet to his knees, he's got this red-brown tinge every day after school. His clothes are filthy. But India is fascinating because it's less about cricket. And she's quite upset because it's an international school. They only take Hindi once a week. And she says, Dad, I was born in India, I'm named India, and I can't speak the language. You know, so she's upset more than, you know, my acceptance of wherever I go, people will speak English. And while in Sweden, after a year, the kids both learned Swedish because they were immersed in Swedish. You know, they had a Swedish-speaking school, small kids, they couldn't speak English. Everybody spoke Swedish, so they had to learn to communicate. So that's been her take on me in India. Is less about, you know, Dad, you were a cricket player. She knows I'm famous and she understands it because we get a lot of requests for selfies on the beach. But she's frustrated because she wants to be more Indian if it's possible.
It is. Wonderful. All right. I would like to go ahead and very quickly, Jonty, with your permission, open this up to the audience because I'm sure a lot of you guys are wanting to ask Jonty a lot of questions. I just wanted to request you that this session would be about maybe 10 odd minutes. So if that's fine with everyone, we could make the questions really quick. And Jonty will ensure that he's catching everyone. I'm hoping that.
Yeah, the questions might be short, but as you noticed, the answers are not always that short.
Really?
Talk around. Thanks.
All right. So, Jonty, I'm just going to walk off. Yes, hi. We're going to start with Divakar. Hi, Divakar. How are you doing?
Jonty, it is wonderful to hear you and
thank you.
Very inspirational. You have been coaching now the Indian folks here and really wanted to understand what is your feedback about the talent of India and how do you see in comparison to other countries which you have been?
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting question. I think what the IPL has done is obviously given talented players an opportunity to showcase the skills that they have. It's also allowed them to come into contact with overseas coaches, overseas players, because that's the best time to learn when you're playing in a game with different people from the different cricketing cultures. And the IPL has just shown how much talent there is in India. It's probably a bit of a drawback. You know, you leave out Rohit and that other guy with number 18 on his back. What's his name again?
I don't know.
I don't know. But you leave them out and there's criticism. But then you've got Gill, who's then scoring hundreds, and we know the talent in India. So sometimes it's a bit of an Achilles heel, having so much of talent, because there's a platform to showcase, but then you sit. I mean, Rohit Sharma was probably the best batter in India. Sachin was towards the end of his career. Rohit couldn't get in the team. You know, once he was in the side, we just saw, and we knew at IPL level how amazing he was. So that's a small issue. Another big issue, I think, with the number of talented players and the youngsters is that we find in the IPL there's too much respect. Yes, my father's a school principal. You know, I don't demand anybody's respect. The first day it's always sir. Then I go, okay, guys, so maybe Jonty, no chance. I understand that. So if you want to go Jonty coach or just coach, that's fine. You don't have to put a sir in it. It's very difficult for young Indian players to do that. And the interesting thing is because in a team environment, there's crucial factors. I did warn you it's going to be a long answer. There's crucial factors that allow a team to overcome a lot of the situations that sort of boil up in it. And trust is a big part of it, and a big part of trust is good communication. And good communication has not just been with the microphone, because yes, you need clarity of roles, and so allowing the players to understand their roles and do their job. So communication is important of goals and roles. But good communication requires active listening. And active listening is actually not just listening with your ears. I find it's actually listening with my eyes, because a young Indian player, if I've asked them if they've understood, for sure, yes, yes, Jonty, coach, there's no ways they're going to tell you how they're really feeling. And I think it's the same in business. There's a massive thing with regards to respect in India, and that sort of culture that, it comes from a family background. And it's so important, because I can read a person's body language. Because when I was fielding at backward point, yes, I had to watch the bat, because that's where the ball was coming from, but their whole body language would tell me it's a forward defense or it's a cut. So my reaction was, I was proactive in my reaction, anticipating where the ball was going to go. So by reading the person's body language, you actually really understand what they are trying to say. So active listening is such a massive part of what we do. And I see it all the time with these talented young Indians who are there is no chance they're going to tell you how they really feel. So, as management, part of my job is deciphering that and really understanding it. And that's where great communication comes in. Because it's not just me giving them instruction, it's me understanding and listening to what the whole picture is telling me. But India has an abundance of talent. And, it's so obvious every single IPL. Can they convert it to all formats of the game? That's for the players to decide.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jonty. We have another very quick question coming your way, Jonty.
Right, Jonty, first of all, thank you very much for all the inspirational words, and we really appreciate it. A couple of quick questions, but before I go to the question, I really want to thank South Africa as well as the cricket team for all the things that they have done. So I think we wouldn't have seen the greats of South Africa that we see now, or even we hear about all the previous greats, Graham Pollock, Mike Proctor, Barry Richards for that matter. I think we hear and we get goosebumps actually what they have done during their days. I think thank you very much for that. And yeah, so I come to the question. So we all have our inspirations. So as a fielder, do you think you also have an inspiration even then or even now?
Sorry, did I have an inspiration?
Yes.
Interestingly enough, I was already seen as a good fielder at school. So 8 years until I landed on the scene in that World Cup in 1992, I was already renowned as being a good fielder. We had no international sport in South Africa. There was a player, Colin Bland, who was apparently excellent at hitting the stumps, good in the field. But because we weren't watching international cricket, I never had a hero that I looked up to. So from a fielding point of view, I just did fielding because I was the way that I did, because I had the energy. So I wasn't going to wait for sort of 60 overs or 90 overs before it was my turn to bat, and utilize that energy in the field. But I was also passionate about the fielding. So I loved it. And I said it earlier, if a journalist asked me, did I work hard at my fielding, I would say no. Same journalist asked my teammates, they would say, yes, Jonty works hard at his fielding. But being given the opportunity, and it was interesting because it came from Hansi, his captaincy. He never asked me I could bowl a bit of off-spin. He never asked me to go work harder at my off-spin bowling in case he needed another all-rounder to bowl a few overs. He just said, go work on your fielding, because that was my passion. So, again, I never had anybody that I was looking up to, because fielding was such a different element of the game, and it was just a passion that I was allowed to spend time at. Because if you play to your strengths, I spoke about me and my speed running to the stumps. If you give people the opportunity to work on what they're passionate about, the growth is exponential.
Absolutely.
As opposed to working on areas that they're skillful. They might still be good at something, but if it's not their passion, the growth it'll be limited. There'll be a ceiling. But when it's their passion and you give them opportunity to spend time working on that, the growth is exponential.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir. Yeah, no, sorry, sir. There's another person and my time's up.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Yeah.
No problem. Last one, sir. Who's got the microphone?
The
Is there time
last
for
one,
one
it's
more?
me. I think just a very short one, Jonty, really short one. And I'm not talking about the question.
Yeah.
I promise to keep it short. It's not a question.
Sure.
It's just a nostalgia. Being a kid in the 90s, we used to wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning to watch your matches. Two things which I wanted to mention, Jonty, if you're not aware or if somebody didn't tell you. But, when we were playing gully or mohalla crickets, right? Every team says that, the the personification of the best fielder is called Jonty. Okay. Hey, I have a Jonty in my team. The other team also says, hey, even I have a Jonty in my team. And next year there would be a change in Jonty because if there is a new guy who's fielding better, he gets the shield. Like that name is Jonty. So that's how we actually think about you.
Thank you.
Even parents also, if a kid gets hurt by diving to do a ball, because we all play on the cement road and cricket, right? The parents also will say, do you think you're a Jonty to dive that and then do that? So that was the kind of environment that we used to have with your name. Thanks a lot for setting up the standard so high. And it was just a nostalgic moment for us to get away from business to go back to our childhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Wonderful.
everybody. Really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, Jonty, I think that brings us to our session. But I think they just wanted to recreate something for you, which might have been nostalgic, which might have been something that you would enjoy. Yeah, they just wanted to do that. Jonty, 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 Jonty. Is the pace fine? Jonty, Jonty, Jonty.